Anybody watch this insurrection trial? It's not even a trial, really. It's a committee hearing, and they're supposed to prove that Donald Trump incited riots and colluded to commit a coup. Oh, how does this work? But everybody knows me by now, and if you don't know me, you will. I am about the betterment of black people. Not because they're black, not because I'm black, but because in order for America to be truly great overall, not that America's not great, because America's absolutely great, but in order for everyone in America to realize that greatness, my people got to do better. So I rant and rave about, not rave, but I rant about things that we could be doing better so that we can advance, because once black people are advanced to, I don't know what status I would give us. I would say around 60K as our average median income. Because right now we're still in the low 40s. I think it's just under 43,000. That's a problem because the gap is so huge. And a lot of that is cultural. Actually, most of it is cultural. Single parent homes, extremely high divorce rate, highest abortion rates, everything that can destroy the family, high percentage government assistance, higher percentage government assistance, not by volume, but by percentage. And it's all bad. It's all bad. So the more that we do not rely on the government, the better, and the better off the entire country is. That's who I am. That's who I believe we can be. And if we can get to that point, I believe that this country will be stronger than it's ever been. So when I see a insurrection primetime programming, I call it a debacle, but they would call it extravaganza. It makes me go back to what I always say, that midterm elections and regular elections, every 2 years, we're going to have this nonsense. Whether they're evoking race and trying to scare black people into thinking that we have targets on our back, that the police are evil, or some kind of racial tension that needs to be maintained in order to keep us. There's nothing skeptical with being skeptical. There's nothing wrong with being skeptical against government, but if you can keep people skeptical against an entire race, you can keep them very weary of anything that anyone else says, unless you think they're on your side. And you have some people who just won't play that game, and when you don't play that game, it makes them more skeptical. Like, well, how come he won't say Black Lives Matter? How come he won't bend the knee? And that's an overall theme of the left. That's what the left does. It's what they're excellent at. And they get my people to vouch for really ridiculous movements because they think at some point we're going to get paid. That's what this all comes down to. A lack of trust for the party that freed slaves, and a full-on trust for the party of slavery. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. They've even convinced people that millions and millions, tens of millions of people switched parties. That's how far they've gone to try to rewrite their history and erase all the things that have gone wrong for black people in America. When I say all, I mean all. Large government programs, abortion rates, high violence, what else? Well, let's go back. Civil rights opposition was them. Jim Crow laws was them. Slavery was them. Yet they've convinced black people that it wasn't them. Hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. And it's like, well, I can look at a history book. So what do? Yeah, but those books were written by white men. Anyway, that's to the side. The party of slavery is now actively trying to keep black people down. Surprise, surprise. It's what they do. So they have this primetime program, and they're trying to link Trump to white supremacy. They're trying to say that he tried to perform this coup. But they offer no evidence. So they're like, well, we're going to show you that that former President Trump should never be president again, and that's what this is really about. That second impeachment, actually the first impeachment, they thought they were going to be able to get rid of him. The second impeachment was to prevent him from running again. That's what it was. Nothing more. So I turn it on and I watch for a little bit, and the first thing this guy does, I'm not going to say their names because I can't stand them. I only talk about the ones on the right that I don't like. The ones on the left don't deserve to have their name. I'll think about it. Anyway, first speaker jumps on and says, I am from this whatever rural part of Mississippi, and I come from a place that is so racist, or was so racist, that they were pro-slavery and pro-Jim Crow, blah, blah, blah. And that's where I'm like, okay, here we go. Because it doesn't make sense to bring up during a supposed coup or insurrection. Like, what does one have to do with the other than trying to get emotional support? What does that have to do with an insurrection? Are you trying to say the government is evil? If so, you're part of the government. Moreover, you're from this racist place, but you were elected as a black man. Sounds to me like there's some progress. Why are you evoking that right now? What do you think you're doing? Sounds like you're pandering to me, but what do you think you're doing? What's the point? I'm from a place that was good with lynching, okay? And now you're an elected official. Represent. That's what you're supposed to do. It doesn't make sense. So anyway, more of the shenanigans go on, and man, talk about a charade. But they don't offer any evidence. They just say this is what happened. And then they proceed to tell us a bunch of stuff we already knew. But they don't address a couple things. They don't address the FBI's role in January 6th. They don't address that supposed pipe bomber. They don't talk about who actually went into the building. They talk about the response, which is interesting because I said the other day, President Trump authorized 20,000 National Guardsmen. And he gave that information to Nancy Pelosi and whoever the Democrat leader or mayor of DC was. They don't go into any of that. They don't go into prevention. How could we prevent this from happening again? They don't go into how did the officials actually handle it. They throw police under the bus while simultaneously calling them heroes. And they have them crying. And the same people they called cowards and wanted out of schools and wanted off the streets and wanted to defund, all of a sudden they have the utmost respect because this lady said how she's been a police officer for X amount of years and everything that she's seen. All of a sudden there's this deep-rooted respect for her. And she doesn't understand that she's just being played and they really don't like her. I don't understand how she doesn't know that, but she doesn't. Whatever, doesn't matter. Liz Cheney gets up there, and Liz Cheney I will name because she's a rhino. She's a Republican who's going to go the George Will route and make the rest of her career bashing Republicans, because that's all she cares about. And again, I do not care about Republicans, but I don't want to call her a turncoat or a traitor, because that suggests that I care about the people she turned down. I'll just call her a scumbag. You say you're this. Your true motive is to bash Trump. Has nothing to do with the party. Has nothing to do with what happened on that day. It's solely to bash Trump because you don't like him. Why don't you like him? Because he insulted your dad. Dick Cheney was a major player in the Iraq War, Desert Storm, and he was a defense secretary, and that's her dad. That's it. That's what this all boils down to. She doesn't like this guy because he insulted my dad. And I honestly believe that's the only reason she got into politics, is to try and clear her father's name. Look, back when the Iraq War started, I believed that there was a reason to go in. I believed the president. I don't agree now that it was handled correctly, but I also don't take back my support when we went in, because I only went with the information that I had. That's all I can do. And I will trust a politician that I voted in until they give me reason not to. I don't just assume that they're crooked, because if that's the case, then there's no point in voting at all. So Dick Cheney was a major part of that. Very smart man. But Trump was he's always been anti-war. So he ran on ending wars and bashing even Republican waged wars. And one of them just so happened to be Liz Cheney's father. So she thinks she's hurting Trump by doing what she's doing. But she's not hurting anybody but herself. Because now she's not only is she going to get primaried, but she's going to be ousted. She's not going to last, because she's not even representing the people of her state. She's representing her father. And that's all she cares about. There's another one of those. McCain's daughter. Meghan McCain. She's another scumbag. Because she's never going to get rid of that title. But she hates the people for voting in Trump. And that's her own people. There's many others in addition to Republicans who voted him in. Even the Bernie bros. Like, there's a lot of other reasons Trump got in. But they hate that he was brought in, and they will not get rid of their R, because they want to be seen as the smart R. They're the smart Republican. They're the ones who are going to tell other Republicans what they need to do if they want to prove that they're diverse. It's a scam. I mean, it's the Ibram X. Kendi nonsense where he tells white people, hey, it's not enough to not be racist. You have to be an activist against racism. And you don't. But it's a similar thing. But it's the political version of that. Trying to convince Republicans that they're not good people for bringing in a bad person in their opinion. What makes him bad? He bashed my dad. And I used to be okay with it because I'm like, well, she's going to defend her family. Whatever, it is what it is. Until you're like insulting his base. Now I have a problem with you. Believe what you want about him. But his base put him in for his policies. And we now see the value of those policies. we see what the old guy has done, the Skeletor. We've seen what he's done. So we now fully understand how strong the economy was, that it was able to be shut down for a year into Trump's final year, his fourth year. The whole year was dealing with the pandemic. And we now know, okay, the economy had to be strong to withstand that. Because now we see the other side's policies, and you can see what's happened with an open economy. So that's what we voted for. That, and it's funny watching leftists get roasted. And rhinos get roasted. So all the rhinos hate him, and boy, the left has full-on Trump derangement syndrome. So what are they trying to do now? They're not talking, they don't care about January 6th. That's nonsense. They care about 2024. And they really care that all of the people he's endorsed, I think all of them, I think he's undefeated so far. Everyone he's endorsed in the primaries have won. So their whole goal is to weaken him. Because they say he's got a hold on the his extreme faction. The what do they call him? The not the ultimate MAGA. What did he say? I think it may have been ultimate MAGA. Whatever. That whole group who brought him in, they say that they have the Republican Party hostage. And in a way, it's true, but that's only because the Republican Party is trash and weak and very, very similar to the liberals. They want the status quo. They want to be able to make money off of wars through contracts. And they just want everything to stay the same, so that they got into politics to make money. Most people don't do that. They did. And that's what they want. They want to make their money. They want to be able to vote every 4 years to raise their own pay. How great is that? Can you imagine if you could vote to increase your salary? You have benefits. You have medical that does not have to comply with the same laws that our medical has to comply with. In Obamacare, they can opt out of anything. That'd be great. So I understand why they're mad. They just forgot why they're there. And it's not supposed to be to get wealthy. It's supposed to be to represent their little small section of the country and those people's interests. It's not to represent the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. It's to represent your people. And that's what we see right now on full display on this ridiculous primetime insurrection boo-hoo party. I'm willing to bet that there are still people out there who think 5 people died on January 6, 2021. Matter of fact, I know it because I still see it online when I see people say they kill police officers, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. What year are you in? That's false. But oddly enough, there was no fact checks on that. Twitter had no problem with that. Oh, I can't wait till Elon Musk is in full control. Facebook, no fact checks. They had no problem lying and leaving the old news up because I Googled it to prove some idiot wrong, and all the first searches are still that this police officer died, this police officer died, this police officer died, and it's like, wow. So you can't do any fact checks and stop putting that at top of the searches? Google? I guess not. So when people Google, they still think, oh, look, this happened. This article is as of January 8th, and it says 5 people died, so it must be true. 1 person died, and she was an actual protester. So she was a MAGA person. MAGA, whatever. She was a Trump supporter. That's the only person who died. So when they're up there talking about fire extinguishers, getting hit in the head, all this stuff, blood is everywhere. I'm slipping and sliding on blood as I carry these unconscious carcasses back. They forget the whole part where nobody died. There were no major injuries at all. All the stories that came out on that day and probably for the next week or two were fake. This officer died. This officer died. How did he die? Of a heart attack. But we think it's because of what he went through the day before. Like, what? Since when do we do that? He died of a broken heart? Because he truly believed there was an insurrection? I can't believe these traitors. No one was charged with insurrection, by the way. No one was charged with treason. They were charged with trespassing. Why is that? If it was an insurrection, well, how come you guys didn't charge anybody for insurrection? And you may say, well, because it's harder to prove. Well, you got proof. There's 4 million, I think they said 4 million minutes of footage throughout the whole city of DC. And they were just plugging people, picking people off of videos, calling them up, showing up at their house and arresting them. You were part of an insurrection. There's people still locked up who still haven't had their day in court. They were blaming the pandemic. Well, that's over now. Why are these people still sitting there rotting in cells? Besides the point. But they can't answer the original questions, which was, who was behind it? They'll blame Trump, okay. What's the proof? You talk about the Proud Boys, they're just there to literally fist fight with Antifa. They're not trying to commit treason and overthrow the government. It's so ridiculous. How come nobody's being charged with that? Where's the proof? There was a poll of Rasmussen, and it was showing the priorities of people on the right and the priorities of people on the left. People on the right are worried about the economy. They're worried about employment, jobs, like real employment, not this weird fudge number. They're worried about the border and its impact on the economy. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about gas prices. This is their list. The left, they're worried about Ukraine. They're worried about January 6th. What else they had? They just listed all these things. They're completely polarized, just like the country is. They want to blame Trump, but these are media narratives or a lack of media narratives. This is things that they're talking about. They're worried about climate change right now. According to the left and their priorities, gas prices, inflation are not even top, I think, 5. How is that possible in 2022, right now, what we're going through? How are you not worried about gas prices and inflation and the economy? How are you not worried about that? Well, you believe there was an insurrection and the country was at risk. You believe the climate, you believe in climate change. You don't have to agree with, you don't have to take the stance that there is no climate change to believe that the left are insane about climate change. Because in order to be as worried as the left is, you have to blame climate change on us and say it's man-made. But they can't prove that. It's a full-on deduction. This is how they look at it. Well, the climate has always shifted. Now that there's a lot of us, it must be us that's making it shift the way it's shifting. That's the crux of their argument. They can't show you how we've impacted it. They just know and have a gut feeling that we're the cause. Moreover, we can impact it. We can reverse what's been done. But just the difference in priorities is it's fascinating to me. And don't fall for any of these tactics, these racial tactics, where a guy's talking about slavery. Oh, white supremacy, that was another concern. And I'm sure you can throw equity in there somewhere. And wage gaps between men and women. I'm sure you can throw all that in there. Anything that's not important is their highest priority, because it can distract from the fact that their policies have completely failed and are a disaster for the country. And now that there's proof, they could just point back and say, yeah, but Trump. So they're trying to get that same response, that we can't allow him back in. He tweets.